Okay, so let's start. So the topic today is powerful techniques to turn website visitors into new patients. And the concept here is a lot of the webinars that I've done and a lot of the marketing related talks that people typically will focus on is really on the first side of the new patient equation, which is generating leads. And really, generating leads is the first part, but you need to turn leads into appointments so they actually come in and schedule. And then, once they're in the office, of course, then there's case acceptance. And so there are several parts of the process. And marketing typically focuses on that first part. So the webinar today is really going to talk about both the first two steps, generating the leads and then converting the leads into appointments. And so that'll be our focus as we go through this. The agenda really is going to be a pretty balance between those two items. So I'll start out with a little bit of information about WEO Media and myself, and then we'll get into the details. Due to the number of people on the webinar, we'll go ahead and have a Q&A session at the end. Everybody should notice on the probably most likely on the upper right of your screen, you should have a little console for the webinar, and there's an opportunity. There's a little box there where you can type out your questions. And so you can type those out anytime during the webinar, and then at the end, I'll go ahead and answer all those questions towards the end. Okay, so let's get started. For those who don't know about me or WEO Media, I'm one of the co-founders at WEO Media. We are a national dental marketing firm. And a couple of quick things. Dentistry Today named me one of their top CE leaders and consultants this year and last year, so I really appreciate that honor. It's humbled to kind of have that nomination. Also, I'm a pretty experienced entrepreneur, built a number of companies. I'm a published author. I published my first book last year, and I do a lot of speaking back when we used to actually be able to meet in person. I used to do a lot of lecturing. And so we'll talk about this stuff as we move forward. Now, WEO Media, again, we're based in Portland, Oregon area. We started the company in 2009. Got about 50 employees, and we work with over 700 dental practices around the country, both general dentistry and specialty. At WEO, we provide over 24 different services, and these are some of the most popular. And the reason I mention this, that we do the websites and everything digital marketing, is what I'm going to teach today is based on a lot of experience and data, based on case studies. I'm going to show a few case studies as we go through this. And so it's really coming at this as from a practitioner's perspective, not as a theoretical or a consultant saying, hey, here's what I think you ought to do. This is somebody who runs a dental marketing agency with over 700 practices that I have access to their information, looking at the digital data. So I'm going to show you a lot of what we know based on our experience works across many of these types of services. Last thing briefly about WEO, last 4 years in a row, we've won the ADA's Best of Class Award for being the top website and online marketing firm in the dental industry. So again, we're very honored to have won that. Okay, so enough background info. Let's get into the marketing. So at a high level, I like to kind of set the stage just with some basic stuff here before we dig into the main topic. Now, when we talk about marketing, the obvious reasons to do this, right, would be to increase revenue and profits, which thereby increases the value of the business. And what's pretty cool about digital marketing in particular is you can focus on specific items. So if you want to focus on dental implants or orthodontics or sleep or whatever, those things can be targeted. Likewise, you can target specific geographies. If there's certain areas of town that you'd really like to focus on, all those types of things are really nice with digital marketing. It gives you a very targeted marketing approach. And ultimately, this is something we talk a lot about, at WEO Media, both with our staff and with our clients, is we want to focus on return on investment, ROI. Marketing should make you money. If you're spending money on marketing, whether it's $500 a month or $5,000 a month, it should be bringing in more than you're spending, obviously, or something's not working. And so that's the kind of the mindset that we think about with marketing. I'm not so interested in brand awareness or how many clicks did I get to my website. I mean, those are metrics, but they're not ultimately that important. What really matters is, are we generating leads with phone calls and people contacting the practice who could be become new patients, and then ultimately, how is the practice doing converting those? That's really what matters at the end of the day. Is if you're spending money, what are you getting in return? And so that's the lens we're going to think about as we go through these topics this afternoon. A common question we get is, how much should we spend on marketing? Now, there's an organization called the Academy of Dental CPAs. It's adcpa.org. It's a few dozen dental CPA firms. They collectively represent over 9,000 practices around the country. Really sharp group of folks. They have a lot of data, a lot more than I do, obviously, in the financial side of things. What they see with a lot of their practices is those that are really growing and generating a lot of new patient flow are spending 3 to 5%, a lot of times up to 7% of their gross revenue on marketing. Now, that's if you're wanting to grow. If you're fine just kind of staying where you're at and, well, hey, we've got all the patients we can handle, then great. You probably don't need to increase your marketing. But most practices, they're competitive and they'd like to add a little bit more patient flow. And so 3 to 5% is a really good range. Now, what does that spend get you? Well, what we've observed across the country, and this is true across almost every geographic market, is typical patient acquisition cost for a general practitioner is between $100 and $200 per patient. Typically, we like to be under $150 is our target. And so if you spend, for example, $1,000 on marketing, that should generate between 5 and 10 new patients for that month. Now, if it doesn't, maybe the marketing is still ramping up, because marketing does take time to take effect and to really get optimal results. But once a program is properly ramped up and is really performing well, which can take 6 months or more, sometimes even 12 months. But once you get it into that range, it can really become a cash cow and a very significant source of growth for your practice. Okay, online marketing. Let's dig into the details here. Now, when we think about this, like I just mentioned, we want to talk about kind of two primary focus areas. Number one is generating traffic, which is essentially potential leads for your website. And then the other thing is converting that traffic into leads, right? So we got to get the traffic, then we need to convert the traffic into leads. And so we're going to talk about both of these. First step, how do we generate traffic, right? Generate these leads. So when it comes to the digital marketing in particular, there are kind of these 6 pillars we really talk about, and I'll go through each one of these in a little bit more detail, but the website is kind of that foundational bedrock, right? That's the thing we build upon. Search engine optimization, SEO, that's a whole complex set of things that we do to get the website to rank highly on a Google search or a Yahoo or Bing search. PPC, paid ads. So these are paid ads on search engines to get traffic, and we'll talk about that in some detail. Online reputation, these are your reviews on Google and Facebook and Yelp and Health Grades and so forth. Social media and video. So these are all things that are very beneficial to help generate leads, primarily coming through your website. Now, once we've got those leads, how do we convert those into appointments? Well, there are a number of techniques and things you can do. Having 24/7 live chat on the website, we strongly recommend that for anyone who has 400 to 500 visitors per month or more on their website. You're going to see a very good return on investment typically with that service. Likewise, online appointment scheduling, that can be very effective. And there's a couple ways to do that one. You can schedule it directly into practice management software, so basically allowing certain patients to appoint for certain types of procedures, or you can just have it just be a simple request, an appointment request form. Either one of those is fine. Messaging makes a big difference. What is your messaging on your website in terms of safety, in terms of new patient offers, your expertise, things like that. Videos, and a newer thing is really teledentistry. Teledentistry, obviously, with the emergence of COVID-19, has become a pretty huge platform that people are really taking a look at, and a lot of practices are implementing that. So we'll talk about all 6 of these items as well as the previous 6 items as we go through the bulk of the webinar today. Okay, step 1, generate leads. First item we talked about is the website. So what really matters on a website? These are kind of some of the checklist items that you're going to want to make sure that your website has. And again, we are recording this webinar. I'm going to post this on our website at weomedia.com, probably later today or tomorrow at the latest. And so you can certainly take notes, but just realize you'll have free access to this anytime you want to go back and rewatch and pause and stuff like that. Also at the end, I'm going to have my contact information up on the screen for a period of time as we do the Q&A. So if you have specific questions, you can text me, email me, I'm happy to answer anybody's questions. Okay. So with the website, obviously it needs to be mobile optimized. What that means is it's going to properly render and display on a tablet, on a phone. Primarily those are the biggest things, because over 60 to 70% of traffic now is on mobile devices, website traffic. So it's super important there. HTTPS security, this is really an important item. Google recommended last year that they would like to see all websites migrate towards this. So if you don't have this currently on your site, I'd recommend getting a hold of your website company and just upgrading your SSL certificate. That's SSL certificate, in case you're taking notes there. A lot of other things, the design, the use of videos, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. Now, in particular, one of the things that's very impactful with websites right now is kind of having an announcement to give your status update, right? So this is something that's very common. This is one of our client websites, and so when you navigate to this website initially, what happens is the website actually kind of grays out in the background, and what you see come to the forefront is this pop-up window. Please read our COVID-19 safety precautions. You can click on that link and it takes to a safety page. We are open and accepting all appointments. Call now to schedule your appointment. And that message can be customized. It can be call now. It could be engage in our live chat if we're not available. Whatever you want to put, we're seeing emergency dentistry only if you're not fully open, but have some sort of pop-up where it really quickly, or if not a pop-up, a banner going across the front, but somehow to quickly tell people the information like, are you open? How do I contact you? That's what they want to know quickly when they hit your site right now. Now, the second and third steps or parts of generating the leads initially would be SEO and PPC, right? SEO is search engine optimization. That's organic traffic, and PPC, these are the paid ads. So on the left of the screen here, we see this is a Google search for looking for a dentist in this town. Actually, this is Portland, Oregon, where I live. So if you look at the very top, circled in blue, those are the ads. Those are the PPC ads, okay? So people are paying money to show up in those spots. Now below that, outlined in green, you'll see search engine optimization. This is the organic stuff. Now in here, you'll notice two different types of organic results. You've got the map, and below the map, you've got organic listings. So when we talk about SEO, where about 94% of all the clicks go to SEO, you're going to want to be in that green. The 6% of the clicks do happen, which is still pretty significant for paid ads. And so people think about, oh, I don't click on the ads, or those ads don't work. If the ads are done properly in combination with an SEO program, it can be extremely powerful. And I'll show you how that works here in just a few slides. Let's first start with SEO. So when we talk about SEO, you're really talking about Google primarily, because Google is about 2/3 of all search volume. So Bing is about 18 to 20%, Yahoo's maybe around 10%. So Google's the big gorilla, right? So if we're talking about how do we optimize to rank high in a search result, we need to understand a little bit about how search engines work. And so for the average website, for my website, for your website, what Google does is about every 30 days, it will analyze your website. And it looks at over 200 variables to decide how high or how low to rank your website in a search result. It's looking at things on the website itself, which we call on page. This would be website content, website code, videos, blog posts, all this kind of stuff. Then there's a whole nother set of criteria that's called off page. These would be directories like health grades and Dex and Yellow Pages and Google and so forth. Backlinks to the website, where somebody else's website links back to yours as a reference, showing Google it's an important website, things like that. So there's all these different kinds of things. In fact, here are some of the probably the more important things when we talk about this. Unique website content is super important. So what that means is, let's say you go to the state dental conference back when we could do such a thing, and I'm sure we will again someday, right? You go there, there's a dozen companies that will sell a website to you, and so you buy a website, they put their content on there. Now that content is pretty much always going to be duplicate or stock content, meaning that same website content that describes the veneer and the dental implant and the crown and these kinds of things, that same content is going to be exactly used on other doctors' websites. And that's okay. Like clinically, as long as it's technically correct, yeah, that's fine. Now the search engines, they don't like that. They like unique content that's specifically only written for that website. So one of the big things that if you're paying somebody to do SEO and they're not writing unique content that's only for your website, you're not getting real SEO. I can't put it any more plainly than that. That is a critical core part of SEO. It has to be unique content. Now, there are many, many other things. The website code, there's meta code and schema code. There's lots of things in the HTML code, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here in the next slide to give you a little bit of a taste for that. Directories, backlinks, social media, reviews, many things affect SEO and your Google rankings. And Google looks at all this stuff on a monthly basis, about every 30 days. So this is why SEO is an ongoing activity. You can't just kind of do it once and be done. You're being evaluated and judged every 30 days by the search engines. So this stuff must be a continual process, but you are rewarded over time. And those that rank on page 1 on Google are handsomely rewarded with a lot of leads. Real briefly, this is not an SEO webinar. If you want a really detailed SEO explanation, you can go to our webinar archive page on our website. And I just did, I think a few weeks ago, actually, I just did a really detailed deep dive on SEO in that webinar. That webinar was only about SEO. What I'm going to show you here is just really a real brief snapshot. So on the left of the screen here, I'm using what's called Google's structured data testing tool. What does that fancy schmancy stuff mean? Well, what this is on the left, this is the HTML code. You probably have heard of the HTML code. This is what Google and the search engines read. So you and I would see the pretty website with the photos and the colors and the graphics and the logo and all this stuff. That's not at all what Google sees. Google sees the code, okay? This is the code. So what Google's tool is telling us when we run this on this website is, here's what I see on the right of the screen. Here's the information I've detected that I've learned about your business. And you can see for this dental practice, it's nothing. There's nothing detected. This is bad. This is not what you want to see. So we're going to give that a thumbs down. Now this is one of our client websites, and you'll see on the right, it's not blank. What you'll see is Google says, oh, this is a dentist. And here's their name, here's their phone number and fax and email, here's their map location and PIN and so forth, postal address and on and on. So you have to proactively build this stuff into the code of the website in order to tell Google what it wants to know. This has nothing to do with building a website. This is totally different. This is SEO. You can build a website, it can look pretty, but it won't rank worth beans if you don't also have somebody do the SEO. They're totally different skill sets. Typically designers build websites, SEO engineers do the coding. They're two totally different skill sets. So usually it's not the same person doing it. Normally you're going to want to have two distinctly different teams working on this type of thing. We'll give this a thumbs up. This is what it should look like, but I'll tell you, the vast majority of dental websites that we analyze don't have this done properly. I'm going to show you a real quick case study here just to kind of demonstrate what happens with SEO. So this is a client website where we implemented a lot of the things I've talked about, unique content and code and backlinks and all this kind of stuff. This was in the Seattle area, this website. So when we launched it, they were getting about 500 visitors a month to the site, which was pretty good actually. But over the course of the next 9 months, we got them ranking on page 1, and so had a 400% increase in their traffic from 500 to 2,000 visitors a month. And so now in the context of why this is interesting for our conversation today we're talking about two things, right? Generating traffic, which is leads, and converting those into appointments, to potential appointments. So traffic is interesting, but if nobody's picking up the phone and calling, then who cares, right? Traffic is meaningless if you're not converting it into leads. So what we do when we're doing online marketing for our clients is we use phone tracking numbers so we can see, okay, great, we got all this traffic, but what happened with the phone calls? Well, here are the phone calls. As you can see, they also had followed the same trend. As the traffic increased, so did the phone calls. That's what you want to see. And so in this case, after month 9, we had about 2,000 visitors on the website, and you can see we're consistently over 200 phone calls a month. And that's about what we see, typically around 10% plus or minus, 5 to 15% of the calls will generate new patient appointments. So when I see a website ranking on page 1, getting 200 phone calls a month, I know probably they're getting about 10% of that, about 20 new patients a month is what they should be doing if they're answering the phone and they're converting those leads properly. If we see that it's much less than that, then something's wrong. There's something wrong with either they're not answering the phone or not doing it in a proper way. And we'll definitely talk about that here in the second half of the webinar. Now, in this case, this practice was doing a good job of converting those leads and booking appointments. They were generating 20 to 30 new patients a month from the SEO and PPC. Their budget was around $2,500 a month, which is about a solid. It's not an overly aggressive budget. It's not a low budget. It's a good solid budget. And so they're generating patients for $100 to $125 a patient. Now, for a general dentist, a new patient's worth about $800 to $1,000 in the first year. So this is a really good return on investment. This is what you want to see. So when you're doing this digital marketing, it's very important to be tracking calls as well as tracking where every new patient comes from in your practice management software. Okay, the third thing is pay-per-click. Now, these are those paid ads we talked about. Pay-per-click ads are nice because you turn them on, you get clicks instantly right away, you're generating clicks, and that's great. Now, the key with these is it should be in parallel and complementing with your SEO program. So let me kind of explain and illustrate what we're talking about here. And this is how you should properly run an online marketing program, and a lot of places just simply don't do this. So I'm going to pretend that I'm a general dentist and I'm in Anaheim, California. That little star there, that's my practice, okay? And Anaheim, California is outlined in the red there. So if you think about, okay, if that's my practice, what's the circus? What's the radius that I'm going to be potentially pulling new patients from? And in a densely populated area like this, 3 to 5 miles is probably where 80% of your patients are coming from, right? So we could look at this and realistically say, for my practice, we look at this, okay, this is probably the area that I want to focus my online marketing performance. Now, what does that have to do with SEO and PPC? Well, let's start with SEO. How SEO works is Google and the search engines, they will rank your website based on your physical address associated with that website. So if my physical address is Anaheim, then my search results are going to tend to show up if somebody types in dentist Anaheim, Anaheim dentist, cosmetic dentist Anaheim, orthodontics Anaheim, dental implants Anaheim, right? Those types of searches I could potentially show up for because I have an Anaheim address on my website. Now I can type in there, we service patients in Fullerton and Buena Park and Cypress and Garden Grove and all these surrounding areas, but it's very, very unlikely I'm going to rank organically in an SEO search because there's going to be lots of dentists that have those zip codes and those addresses, and Google's going to rank them above a dentist in Anaheim. So it's very difficult to get SEO rankings in cities where you don't have a physical address, unless you're out in a rural area. But this is Southern California, clearly not rural. Okay, so how do we get those people then? Well, that's where the pay-per-click ads come in. So what we do when we design a program is we say, okay, where are you physically located in the city that you're in? And then we try to work with you and understand, okay, where are you drawing patients from? And then where you are going to rank good for rankings, that's SEO. And then we look at areas, okay, these are areas where you could pull patients from realistically, but you're not going to realistically get good SEO rankings because you don't have an address there. That's what these green PPC rectangles are representing. That's where you should focus your PPC ads. Now, the one caveat to that is if you're ranking very poorly in Anaheim, then you probably want to focus your PPC ads on Anaheim as well, or even primarily. But if you're ranking pretty good in Anaheim, the PPC ads should complement that in this fashion. So I find that this visual really clears up with people how to properly use SEO and PPC together. The fourth thing are reviews. Now in dentistry, we talk about the big four. We've got Google, Facebook, Yelp, and HealthGrades. They're all very important for different reasons. Now, when we talk about online reputation, the things that matter most, the most important number one thing is the average star rating. You really, really want to be above a 4.0 star rating on these 4 review sites, and ideally above a 4.5 is where you'd really like to be. If you're 3 point anything or below, that's not good. You're definitely going to be losing a lot of potential new patient flow if you're in that lower range. So you really want to focus on that and pay attention to that. You should know, if you have somebody who's in charge of your marketing, they should know every week they should be checking on your review averages. Every week they should be doing that. You should, if you have a marketing coordinator, you should be able to ask them anytime, hey, what's my average star rating on HealthGrades or Google? And they should know. And if they don't know, they should be able to find out really quickly, right? They can do the search, but they got to be monitoring that. Star rating is super important. Well, what else matters? Well, kind of how recent are the reviews? So it's important to generate reviews every month because patients and search engines both really feel like the relevance is on something that's new. If it's a really old review, they tend not to give that as much credence and belief. Replying to reviews is also beneficial. So if you have a bunch of reviews on these review sites, it's actually a good idea to go in there and reply and say, oh, thanks for the feedback. We really appreciate it. Keep these replies generic. Think about HIPAA. You do not want to get into any kind of details about their treatment, nothing clinical. And really, if you want to get down to the rule of the guideline with HIPAA, you're not even supposed to technically acknowledge that they're your patient online, really, to be safe. And so what I recommend is keeping it reply, yes, but be very generic, very high level. We appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much. That's good enough. Don't get into more, oh, we're so glad you've been our patient for 12 years. I probably wouldn't go there. And then last but not least, SEO has a big factor for review performance. So if you have a lot of reviews, you're getting them on a monthly basis, that is very helpful for your Google rankings. Social media, this is a big thing too. You want to typically post, once, twice, maybe 3 times a week. Facebook and Instagram, we found, are the most impactful platforms on social media for posting content. Videos, obviously, we're talking YouTube. And now videos are good whether you're on social media or we're talking videos specifically. Videos are really great because they will improve the engagement of your social media, they improve the engagement of your website, and they improve the SEO ranking performance of your website. So videos and social media really work well together. So we'd encourage people to kind of take an active approach to doing that. So these are the first 6 items that we wanted to talk about at a high level. I address these more in much more detail in previous webinars. So if you want to check out the webinar archive page, you can get a lot deeper dive in many of these topics. But for today, I wanted to give a brief overview. Okay, here's how we generate leads, these 6 things. Now, what I want to kind of spend a little more time on, now that we've got the leads coming in, we've got the good website, we've got effective SEO, we've got some targeted PPC ads and so forth, we've got that traffic. Now what, right? Are we doing a good job of converting it? So here's our list again of those 6 items, right? Live chat, scheduling, and so forth. So I'll go through kind of each one of these and we'll talk about these in a little bit of detail. Now with live chat, there are different ways to do this. In the past, like years ago, 5-6 years ago, we would put chat boxes, chat bots on client websites, but the client would have to staff it themselves. And we found, I don't think we ever had a client keep it more than 3 months because they said, it's just a waste of money. We don't have time. We're not responding. There's not enough chats, whatever the reason was. And so it just never was an effective conversion tool for a dental practice. That all changed when some companies, and there are a handful of companies in the industry now that you can outsource this to. They have 24/7 staff who will answer chats anytime, the day or night, any day of the week, and they are in the onboarding process. We have about a 45-minute onboarding process with our chat company with a new client. And we go through, here's all the services, here's their insurance, here's their office hours, here's their website. And so the chat operators get a screen. So when somebody engages on a chat, the screen pops up on their side and they see what practice it is, the details, and so then they can answer some of those basic questions. Now, this is a great way to engage people because a lot of people come to your website when you are not answering the phone. Over 90% of the leads you'll get from a website are indeed phone calls. However, there's a lot of traffic that hits your website after hours. And so unless you have a 24/7 call center to answer all your calls, which most practices don't, a more affordable and an easier thing to implement is this live chat. And so we've been selling this service now for a while. It's very helpful for converting, again, for people who have solid traffic. If you only have 100 people a month hitting your site, do not waste money on chat. You will not get an ROI. But if you can get 400 to 500 visitors or more on your site, which the vast majority of our SEO and PPC clients do, then you find a pretty good return on investment with live chat. And the chat thing is cool too, because our chat company, who we work with, they can remote into your practice management software. And if you want, they don't have to, this is optional, but if you want to allow them to, while they're on that chat at 8 p.m. on a Friday night, they can remote into your Dentrix or your EagleSoft or your Open Dental or whatever, and say, oh, you'd like to see the doctor next Thursday. Let me see. Yep, yeah, we can get you in for a new patient appointment next Thursday, 11:30. Will that work for you? Great, boom. And they schedule it Friday night at 8 p.m. You come in Monday morning, hey, cool, look at that. We got some people booked over the weekend. Thank you, chat operators. That's what happens with this chat service if you've got enough traffic. So we always recommend that. Another thing you can do if you're doing this is on your voicemail. If people do call after hours and you don't have a 24/7 call center service, then what you could do is on your voicemail say, oh, thanks for calling our practice. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to engage live with us right now, please visit our website at www.whatever.com and engage with our chat team, right? And then they can go to your website and then they can get their questions answered and they can schedule. Now, they're not going to get into clinical. They're not your clinical staff. They're not going to get in any kind of treatment discussions. What they're there to do is field incoming inquiries and try to get them to schedule or contact the office. And a full chat dialogue then is sent in the chat software program. The practice can log in any time, 24/7, and they can see all the chats that have happened. They can read all the chat dialogues. It's a very powerful platform. So again, this is something that I find many more websites now in the last year, 12 to 18 months. I've seen a much more of a proliferation and an adoption of chat on dental websites compared to 2 or 3 years ago. And it's because people are seeing that, hey, this actually works. And it's also because a lot of people come to your website after hours. So if you're not currently doing chat, I'd encourage you, step one, find out what your website traffic is. If you're 400 to 500 visitors a month or more, I would consider giving it a shot and seeing how it works for you. This is kind of what that would typically look like. So this is another one of our client websites. You come there and the chat box can just kind of pop up on the right there. And you can set it either way. You can set it so that it's minimized, and you can click on the little thing that says hide, and then it'll just kind of be like a little chat dialog graphic icon in the lower corner, so it's not obnoxious and taking up the screen. You can have it set so that it will show up either way when people hit your website. I generally recommend having it pop up like this. Yes, it doesn't look pretty and aesthetic, but man, is that effective at generating engagement and leads. So as a marketer, I always am all about leads and ROI. So for me, if you want my advice, do it this way. Have it pop up automatically. You'll get a higher conversion rate. Now, the next item would be online appointment scheduling. There are a couple of ways to go about this. Any website just for free as just part of the website should have a basic appointment request form offered to you. And this is just a simple web form. Patients can fill out whatever you want them to have on the form, name, phone, email, new patient or returning patient, whatever fields you want. It's just a simple little form. I'd keep it, to 4 to 7 fields, no more than that, because the more fields you add, the less likely people are to fill it out. But if you can keep it, 4 or 5, ideally, that's good. You'll get a pretty good conversion rate. And then when people hit the submit, it'll email your practice, and then you can log in and access that information. So that's typically how an appointment request form works, and that's free. Any website should offer that to you. Now, if you want to take it a step further, there are third-party softwares, and we work with several, some good ones that we always like to use. And in fact, our chat company has this built into their platform as well. But you can schedule, so what it does is it will integrate with your practice management software, and you can allow which days of the week, which times of the day, what types of appointments that you are willing to let new patients schedule. And so it's pretty slick. And again, this is a great way, if you've got decent website traffic, it's a great way to convert more traffic into appointments. Because like I said, about 90% of your conversion is going to be phone calls, but man, that extra 10%, that can really add up when you're talking about all the traffic that a site might be getting. So when you've got a well-optimized website with lots of traffic, with the chat and an online appointment scheduling, that is a really powerful way to get the best bang for your buck for lead gen and for patient flow. Now, this is an example of what that might look like. So here's another one of our client websites. You see up at the top here, very obvious, schedule appointment, right? So you don't want people to have to search for how to find you. You see we've got the phone number right up here at the top, the schedule appointment button. That's generally what we recommend. I mean, there are many, many ways to design a website, but in general, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This works. This works well. So phone number and schedule appointment button, you want those to be top of the website, easy to find. That's going to get you the best conversion rate on leads. Now, content matters quite a bit. 6 months ago, if you would ask me, how important is it for me to talk about the safety procedures in my practice, I would say that's not in the top 5 or 6 that patients care about. They care about, are you in network or not? Price, basically, right? They care about, are you close to me? How convenient is it? Do you have the right type of services that I need? And do I trust you? Do you have good technology? I mean, those are the types of things that people typically wanted to look at when they're looking for a dentist or a dental specialist. Obviously, the number one factor now that they're looking for is safety, and for obvious reasons, right? So what I'm recommending to all of our clients, and what I recommend to all of you listening to this webinar, is start with this. Create a list of all the things that your practice does to make it more safe for patients, right? Your sterilization, your PPE protocols, safety practices. If you have any sort of HEPA filtration, if you're using any sort of UV sterilization, for whatever you're doing, aprons, bibs, masks, all of it, right? Make a list of everything you're doing, and then put that list on your website. Create a safety page on your website and put that list on there. Even better, create a video. This could even be honestly just a selfie video, the doctor walking through, hey, here's my practice. I just want to let everybody know, Here's what we're doing to make it more safe for you all when you come back to see us. Safety is our top concern. You come in the waiting room, we've got social distancing in place. We've got masks available if you don't have one. We're only going to have people come in when it's their appointment, so no people waiting in the waiting room. All of our staff are using these masks and gowns and gloves, and here's our protocols. And right, you get the picture. You do the walkthrough, and the video is rolling. And then when that video is done, post it to your Facebook, your Instagram, your YouTube, and then your website company can take that video and put it right on your website. Could be on your homepage, could be on your safety page, or both. Those two things, if you do those first two bullets, that will make a huge impact right now in how people will potentially convert from potential leads to actual patients. All right, so you want to feature that everywhere. Another thing you would consider too, and this is something that I've seen work very, very well, is in addition to putting it digitally online, do it old school. Make a flyer, make like a little one-page flyer PDF, mail it to all of your patients. Here's what we're doing to keep you safe. Mail it to them. And then when people come in, hand it to them. If you have paperwork, you want to just over communicate safety right now. And what's going to happen is if you really impress them, what are they going to do? They're going to go home and talk about it with their neighbors, with their coworkers on their Zoom chat. They're like, hey man, I went to my dentist today. I was so impressed with what she had in place. She did this and this and that and that. And guess what's going to happen? You will get referrals from that, guaranteed. So it's really, really important right now to take this seriously. It does not take much time to create a little safety page for your website, shoot a little selfie video. You do that, you could get it done pretty quickly. It will definitely help you convert more leads and potentially not only new patients. Honestly, I would even say it'll help you keep your existing patients who might be thinking about going somewhere else. I'll give you an example. Like my wife, she called up her dentist, or actually rather her dentist called her back for an appointment, and she's like, well, let me think about it. And she was going to go on their website, and she's like, I don't really see anything on their website that says they're doing anything for safety. And she has not made her appointment. My parents, same thing. My parents, my dad's 82, my mom's 79. They're high risk. They probably shouldn't, really venture out unless they need to. But they did the same thing. They're like, well, I don't know what they're doing for safety. They didn't say anything on the phone. I don't see anything on their website. So my parents aren't going in either. So that's just my immediate family. I'm sure there are many, many people who are thinking the same way. If they don't see evidence on your website that you're doing something different, or just that you're doing something at all, they're probably not going to come in, a lot of them anyway. And so, but the cool thing about this is not new to you guys. Dentists have been dealing with infectious diseases for years. We have hepatitis, you have AIDS, you have things that you've been dealing with for years. So you already have PPE, you already are familiar with how to deal with this stuff. Yes, coronavirus is a bit different, but it's still a very kind of that safety mindset. So this is not rocket science for a dental practice to figure out how to deal with. You know what to do, just communicate it. That's all I'm saying. Now, videos is another really important piece, like we talked about earlier. It helps with SEO, Google rankings, which is generating leads. It helps with converting leads. And so there are several types of videos that I would want to point out as important. So probably the biggest thing that we traditionally always want to recommend is what's called a practice overview video. And you can see a little thumbnail of that here on the screen. We've got a bunch of examples of these on our website. These are typically 1 to 2 minutes in length. They'll be a combination of what we call A-roll, which is interviewing with the doctor. So the doctor is kind of speaking into the camera. Then you've got B-roll, which is like what we see here on the screen. The doctor is talking with the patient, front office person is talking with the patient, or B-roll could just be blank kind of panoramic footage of your office, your waiting room, your equipment, your operatories, all that, right? So that A-roll and B-roll gets all split together with video magic by the editors. And at the end, you've got this really great looking video. And so what that video does when you put it on the website is it really brings the fear level down, because people don't want to go to the doctor for two primary reasons, historically, fear and money. Now, the video is not going to address the money piece, but it definitely addresses the fear piece, because when people watch a video, it enables them to form a connection. The best way for your website to form a connection, an emotional connection with somebody looking at it, is through video. It's not by text, right? It's through video. And so if you can put this video on there, it will definitely improve that conversion rate. Safety video we talked about. Now, patient testimonial videos, obviously those are beneficial. Frequently asked question videos. This is another thing I recommend for folks. So if you have the top 5 or 10 questions that patients always ask you and you feel like, oh my gosh, I've said this for the 10,000th time, make a video. For every FAQ you can think of that's pretty common, make a video, put it on your website. You can create an FAQ page on your website, put all these videos on there. It's also good for your SEO, by the way. And it's a great place to direct your patients to check out, get more information, right? You could even do that with pre and post-op instructions if you're doing surgeries. I mean, there's lots of ways you can use these videos. Last but not least, patient education videos. These are dental service specific. We use these really great videos. They're shot in a kind of a movie studio pretty much. And they have professional narrators and actors and great animations. And so we embed these videos on the service pages. So the veneers page has a veneers video. The dental implants has a dental implant video and so forth. So when patients do go to those service pages to learn more, they can watch that video, get educated. They're much more likely to pick up the phone and call. You can also use them for case acceptance and treatment planning too in the office. So if you have your iPads in the office and you say, oh, here's what we're recommending, veneers, crowns, bridges, whatever. Here's some videos on our website. You can hand them the iPad, they can watch it. And that's another way to try to educate your patients. Now, teledentistry is, like I said, come onto the scene pretty strong here over the last few months due to COVID-19. And so there are a number of platforms on the market. I definitely don't have the time or the expertise on this webinar to really dig into that for you. There are probably people on this webinar who probably know more about this than I do. But I know there are a number of platforms. I've reviewed 4 of them myself. They all have their kind of pros and cons. And so the cool thing about this is it is an additional way to communicate with patients. I think at the end of the day, you got to do dentistry in person, right? So, but teledentistry can be cool because you can still use it for a kind of initial consults, kind of like would do with a online appointment scheduling or a chat. It's a way to kind of handle that initial incoming inquiry. You can use it to book appointments, and obviously you can use it for triage. Is this a serious situation or not? And if it is, schedule them for emergency dentistry, refer them to the hospital, whatever is appropriate. But teledentistry is pretty cool. So again, if you think it might fit into your platform for how you want to deal with patients, you might want to take a look at it. But it's another way, another tool in your tool chest. So those are kind of the things. Now, there's an additional step here that is critically important, and that is phone calls. What I've seen over the years, I mean, man, we've done this with hundreds of clients over the years where we will do a really good job of getting their Google rankings up and the phone calls increase. And the vast majority of our clients reap the benefits of that. They say, oh man, we're getting more patients. This is great. And everybody's happy. However, we do get a percentage of our clients, a smaller percentage, but they're there nonetheless. And they say, I'm not getting any value from your SEO service. I'm going to cancel. And we look at the data and we're like, my gosh, we just had one literally in the last week. These guys had they were averaging about 10 phone calls per month when their website launched. We had them over 150 phone calls a month. I mean, a 1,500% increase in phone calls from basically nothing to lots and lots of leads. And doctor goes, oh yeah, we think we're going to cancel. We're not really seeing any value. We're like, oh my gosh, how can you not see value? And so if you look at the data, what I found over the years when I look into this, this is across tens of thousands of phone calls from our clients, 25 to 35% of those calls go to voicemail. This is a problem. If you're paying hundreds or even thousands of dollars a month on marketing to get the phone to ring, but you don't answer the phone, obviously there's a problem there, right? So most practices do not take the phone nearly seriously enough. It's critical. The phone is a critical lifeblood to your practice. So if you're spending money on marketing, phones should never go unanswered. And there are ways to deal with that. If you say, oh, my staff is busy, we don't have time, then get a call center. I can recommend some good call centers. After the 3rd ring, it'll go to them and they'll answer it during office hours or they'll answer it after hours. But you got to answer the phone, right? Now, and I'm going to recommend a solution for this in just a minute here, so stick with me. Now, the calls will drop if, there's also so people go to voicemail, okay, so that they didn't answer, that's a problem. But then there's dropped calls, and I'm going to show you a case study about how all this kind of ties together. And if you track this stuff, you'll see variation between staff effectiveness. If Sally answers the phone, she does a great job of converting and scheduling appointments. But if Bob answers the phone, man, he's just not very effective at this, right? So you can, when you record the calls and analyze the calls, you really find out what's going on with your staff. And so a lot of times, and I've seen this time and time again, we work with a company called Patient Prism. If you've never heard of them, I'm about to teach you about them. They're phenomenal. So this is like a screenshot of what their dashboard would look like. And so this is like how every single new patient call is analyzed. It uses artificial intelligence to sort between new patients and existing, and all the new patients it will give you this kind of breakdown where the call is recorded, and then actual dental coaches, consulting coaches, will analyze and give feedback on every call. So on this little call sheet, you see some green. That's like, oh, hey, you did a good job here, and they'll give you some props about what you did well. Yellow, well, like we see here, since the caller is concerned with pricing, mention your affordable payment options, right? And then red is you just flat blew it, like you really didn't handle that well. And so every single new patient call is in here. It's analyzed. It's got information. There's training videos for your staff. But much more important than all of this, the metrics are amazing. I'm going to show you a case study here. This is one of our clients that we did a tremendous amount of work with last year. This data is from last year, late last year. And so it's really fresh data. And what we found was this was a 6-location group in the Northeast region. Obviously, the Northeast is highly populated, densely populated, very, very competitive. And so this group, hired us to do their marketing, and they said, we really want to get aggressive on new patient growth. They had a pretty solid budget of about 5% of their revenue, which is solid. Love that budget. And we did a lot with it. So we built them a website, optimized their website, I should say. We did SEO and PPC ads. We did reputation management, live chat, scheduling software, and videos. Does that list look familiar to you? It should, right? I just hit all the pillars right there. Everything we just talked about is what we did for these guys. So here's what happened. We generated really excellent results for these guys. We generated 100 on average. This is over the course of about a year's worth of data. 169 new patients a month for all 6 locations, which is about 28 on average, 28 per location was the average, for an acquisition cost of about $163 a month, which is solid in and of itself. That's already a pretty good result. And these new patient numbers are for the WEO services only. We specifically were working with them to track patients who came in from referrals or insurance or walk-ins or whatever. Those new patients are not included in this. These are specifically patients who are tracked to how did you hear about us, Google search, website, that kind of thing. So we know the data is very, very accurate. Now, $163 per new patient is great. However, as we're talking with them, we kind of figured some stuff out. I recommended to them, hey, you should really use Patient Prism. For the amount of money you're spending, you should use Patient Prism. And man, are we glad they did, and are they glad they did? So what happened was, one of the things we identified some major issues for training and stuff like that. But one of the things we found was there were a lot of calls, what this I just showed you here, connected versus not connected. So the red that I just highlighted there with the arrows, those are calls that are not connected. And so that could be a dropped call. It could be, for various reasons. So then you can drill down into, well, why weren't they connected? And what we figured out was the call tree that these guys had been using, which is, it's totally outside the scope of a WEO Media service. We don't get into clients, how are you answering the phone? We're not consultants. We're a marketing company. We get the phone to ring, but we don't go beyond that. And so for us, this is something we normally look at, but I was just kind of thinking outside the box and said, well, hey, what about your call tree? I wonder what's happening there. And so they listened to it, and it was like, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for this. I mean, it was literally about 20 seconds before you could get to any sort of remotely, useful option to speak with somebody. It was just terrible. And so what we found was there was an enormous amount of calls being dropped due to the call tree itself. Before it even got to the practice and somebody had an opportunity to talk with them, they're just using all these calls, these reds were going. And so I'm going to show you now, this is before the call tree changes that we implemented, were done. And then we'll look what it looks like afterwards. You see how low the red is now. Then I'm going to show you the actual numbers. So this made a huge, huge impact, and we would have never known this without Patient Prism software analyzing all these calls. And so here's the actual data, okay, for the 6 locations plus their call center. So at the top, we can see before the call tree change, the yellow there, 24% of all of their calls were dropping. They weren't even getting to somebody. Like I told you before, 25 to 35% of the calls go to voicemail. This was much, much even worse than that. 24% of their calls weren't even getting to voicemail. They were just dropping in the phone tree because they were so fed up with the phone tree. So after we listened to it, we're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And so we changed the recording to be much more streamlined. We literally re-recorded it, had them send it over, and within a couple of days, the new call tree was implemented. And look what happened. We went from 24% not connected to 4%. That was a massive, massive finding. If you want to look at the actual numbers, this group was averaging close to 2,400 calls per month collectively between the 6 offices. So on average, they were losing 574 calls a month were dropping in that phone tree. After we made the change, 96. So that's 478 additional calls going through and talking to somebody. So this is what I talk about when people say, oh, my marketing's not working. Hey, it does not mean your marketing company is not doing a good job. It might, but it might not. It might be your phone tree is terrible. It might be your staff isn't answering the phone. It might be your staff's not doing a good job when they do answer the phone. There are lots of reasons why marketing breaks down. And so it's important to not immediately point the finger at your marketing company. You need to do the due diligence to figure out if you're serious about growing your practice. Don't just keep, I see this all the time and it just drives me nuts. Doctors will go through, oh, that marketing company didn't work. That one didn't work. That one didn't work. And they come to us and we do a good job and they say, oh, you guys aren't working either. And I say, well, what's the commonality here, you know? And then we'll look at the phones and almost always it's the phones. The problem is almost always the phones. It's almost never us. And so that's why I'm so passionate about telling people, if you're going to spend money on marketing, man, you've got to pay attention to the phones. And Patient Prism is the best thing out there by far to analyze this stuff. So here's kind of a quick summary for you. From the changes that we made in the call tree, it generated about an additional 30 new patients per month. So that in itself, just for simply changing a call tree, massive increase in ROI. So before we identified this call tree mess, we were generating patients for them for $163 per patient, which is solid. That's good. But once we implemented Patient Prism and factoring in the cost of Patient Prism, still with the added cost of Patient Prism, we still dropped that acquisition cost significantly, as you can see here. It's $130 some per month. That's a huge, huge improvement, and that's a really solid ROI. So what I want to kind of explain to people in this webinar is, look, you know, you want to focus on both aspects. You want to really focus on step one, let's generate the leads with solid website, SEO, PPC. That stuff is critical to get to the point where you've got a lot of leads coming in. But when that phone starts ringing, it's really critical that you have the chat, the online scheduling, all these kinds of things in place. But 90% of your conversion, your lead conversion, is going to be the phone. And if you're not paying attention closely to your phone data, I guarantee, 100% guarantee, if you're not paying close attention to it, you are losing patient flow. So I've seen it hundreds of times, literally. Every time I analyze the data, I'm just like, oh, they're not looking at their phones. So I'd highly encourage you to take this information today. If you're serious about your marketing, we've got a couple of things. I'll give you, like, actually Patient Prism. We have a great partnership with them, and they give our clients a special discount code. I'll give you in a second here. Recap, right? So the 6 pillars, website SEO, that's all the useful stuff for driving those leads. Lead conversion strategies we talked about, right? So you want to make sure you're doing these things effectively. Consider the Patient Prism trial. You can try a 90-day trial. I'm going to give you the code for here in a sec. It's discounted price, no commitment after that. If you have any kind of real call volume coming in, I think you should call them. And then obviously consider us. You know, if you're not getting the results that you're wanting with your marketing performance, we're happy to talk as well. So I'm going to give you 2 quick offers here, and then we'll answer the Q&A stuff. So with Patient Prism, you can go to patientprism.com/trial90, and you'll see like a landing page. Just fill out the form and then tell them that, oh yeah, you know, company who you referred was WEO Media. They'll know it's us, obviously. And what they'll offer you is 50% off the first 90 days. So you can try it, see if you like it. It's a super cool program. I love it. I wish it was my company. Wish I was a billionaire, I'd go buy them. But it's not my company, but I wish it was. It's fantastic. I love their software. Also, with our company, with WEO Media, we have a team of consultants located all over the country. And what our consultants do is they'll analyze your marketing, your website, your SEO, all this stuff. It's not a sales pitch. They do this analysis, and they'll deliver their report to you. And it takes them about an hour to put this analysis together. And then once they do that, they'll say, hey, here's what we found. Here's what you could do to help. And if you'd like our help, here's what WEO could do to help you with that. So they will give you a proposal, but we're not, you know, sales pitchy people. We're not high pressure salespeople. We're educators. We like to educate about here's how this stuff works. Here's how we can help you. Our company was founded by 3 engineers, myself and my 2 partners. We all have engineering degrees. We all worked in high tech for over a decade before we became marketing people. And so our approach to marketing is very data and process driven. So we like to educate. You can probably tell by my teaching style, I like to kind of go through tick the boxes here and kind of methodically walk through stuff. This is how we teach our sales team as well. They'll analyze your stuff. They'll give you a report. they'll give you some options for working with us, and we'd love to, but if not, that's cool too. And if you do that analysis with them, we'll also send you a free copy of my book, Mastering Practice Growth. This is the book that I wrote last year. The book does a really deep dive in all aspects of practice growth, much more than what we talked about today. So finally, we'll keep it here for some Q&A. My contact information is on the screen here. You are welcome to, well, that's my mobile phone. You can text me directly. I'll text you back. If you want to ask a more detailed question, you can email me. Or if you want to set up a time to talk, you can text or email me. We'll set up a time to talk. My schedule is typically pretty busy, but I always want to make time to answer people's questions. So I will definitely fit you in the schedule if you'd like to chat about this stuff. So at this point, I'll just leave this on the screen here while we're wrapping up, and we got a few questions coming in here. So let me kind of go through these. Okay, first question, you mentioned about digital marketing and how much we should spend, but how much, okay. What they want to know is what's the breakdown of, okay, if I spend 3 to 5% like the CPAs recommend, what should that look like? That's a good question. I mean, what we typically recommend, and I didn't go into that level of detail on this, get your online marketing program dialed in first, because if you do direct consumer marketing like mailers and print ads and radio ads, if you start with those things before your digital's dialed in, you're going to lose a lot of patient flow and a lot of leads. Because what happens is when people get that direct mailer or the print ad or whatever you're doing, a lot of times they're going to do what, right? They're going to get on Google and start checking you out. And so if your site is not optimized, if you don't have lots of good reviews, you don't have some active social media stuff happening, there's a good chance that all those people who got your direct mail piece end up less than enthused and don't convert into leads. So always start with getting your digital marketing dialed in first. So that's where the majority of the budget should go. And then if you want to, once it's going up and going and you want to consider it, direct mail still works a lot of times. We have a lot of clients we do direct mail for, but I always recommend them. You got to get your digital dialed in first. And then what we'll do to measure the performance is we put a unique tracking number on the direct mail piece. It's different from the website tracking number. So again, we can see how many calls are being generated from direct mail versus the website. Now, the one thing I'll tell you with direct mail is a lot of those people go online. And so direct mail always gets less credit than it deserves for new patient leads because a lot of those people do go online. So I generally think 2 to 3 times as many patients are typically from what we've been able to track in the past. If you see we tracked 10 new patients to our direct mail campaign from the tracking number, you probably got 20 to 30 from the direct mail campaign, because a lot of them are going to go online and call the website number. And you might ask, how did you hear about us? They might say direct mail. They say, oh, I was on your website and I called, right? So that's the thing with how do you spend that money? I'd really focus on digital marketing first, get it dialed in, and then the rest. In terms of specifically like SEO, like our SEO programs range from $500 to $1,000 a month, depending on the competition level. So if you're in a highly competitive market, Los Angeles, Seattle, Boston, yeah, you're looking at probably $1,000 a month. It's super competitive, but once you're on page 1, the traffic volume is huge. So if you can get on even page 2, honestly, in those big cities, but even page 1, the ROI is just phenomenal. But it takes a lot of work to get on page 1 in those big cities. Smaller cities, smaller towns, you can get away with a lot less budget. We typically see that. The other thing with budget, the big chunk of an online marketing budget, a lot of times is chewed up with the Google pay-per-click ads. And most of that money is flowing straight through to Google, which is fine. As long as it's generating clicks and calls, that's what it's for. So there are techniques we can use to try to understand calls coming from paid ads versus calls coming from organic. There's Google actually has scripts that they let us embed in websites to kind of try to tell the difference between those. So that's another technique we've got. Okay, looks like those are the questions we've got for today. So again, my contact information is here. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach out. I'll answer all of your questions. And appreciate you taking time today over your whether this is lunch hour for the West Coasters or you're on the East Coast and you're mid-afternoon. Appreciate your time today, and I look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Our website, we've got lots of future webinars, so you can register for those anytime you like. They're all free. All right. Thank you, and have a good day.